Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here as we, a whole bunch of virtual friends, get together and talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sort of good stuff. We got a couple of really interesting topics to talk about here today. Could the sheer size of Avengers Infinity War intimidate and maybe turn away some potential new fans? Should Hollywood adopt the same kind of Rooney rule that the NFL has adopted? That, the movie news feed, and a whole bunch more. But before we get to any of that, let's go right off the top. Now, as many of you guys know, there's this little service out there called Moviepass. I am a member of Moviepass. I am a card-carrying member of Moviepass. Even though I think they're kind of a shady company, I still use the service. I know a lot of you guys are members of Moviepass as well. Well, it was just announced that Moviepass has just signed a deal with their biggest movie theater chain to date, and that is Landmark Theaters, of which one of the owners is Mark Cuban, of course, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks and one of the dudes on Shark Tank. Now, Landmark is not a monster theater chain, unlike, say, an AMC or a Regal or something like that. Landmark has 53 theaters across the country. It's still pretty good. They got a couple here, at least one or two here in Los Angeles as well. And I've been to Landmark Theaters. Nice theater chain. Really nice theater chain. Anyway, Moviepass has just signed a deal with them. In the report that details the deal between Moviepass and Landmark, the report in Variety says this: under the new agreement announced on Tuesday, Moviepass will be integrated into Landmark Theater's ticketing system. The controversial company announced last week that it was offering a package deal of $6.95 a month for subscribers to watch a movie a day for a month. Moviepass also said members who use the service at Landmark Theaters will be able to take advantage of the added benefits, including e-ticketing, advanced screening reservations, and in-app seat selection. If you are a Moviepass member who lives near a Landmark Theater, this is pretty huge. One of the big knocks on Moviepass, compared to, say, like another company like Cinemia. I'm also a card-carrying member of Cinemia. I actually prefer Cinemia, but I use them both. I like them both, even though I think one's a pretty shady company. Anyway, I use Cinemia, but one of the knocks and one of the advantages that Cinemia's had over Moviepass is that with Moviepass, you, for the most part, 99% of the time, you can't buy your tickets in advance. You actually have to go to the movie theater to get your ticket. You can't buy your tickets online. And those are some pretty big roadblocks for somebody like me, at any rate, who really likes to buy my tickets in advance online, select my seat. Well, now, according to this report, if you live near one of those 53 Landmark theaters, Moviepass will let you buy your tickets in advance online and pick your seat in advance for a Landmark theater. Not for AMC, not for Eagle, not for anything like that, but at one of those theaters. For anybody who lives close to a Landmark theater, this is a big deal. This is a very big deal. Now, how long Moviepass can keep this up and all that kind of stuff, wait to be seen. Now, clearly, this is where the dark side of this comes in, I think. Clearly, Moviepass, as I've been saying to you guys, and you guys have seen for yourself, Moviepass has been trying to strong-arm companies like Regal, companies like AMC Theaters, to try to force them to make deals with them. They are trying to basically strong-arm and, basically blackmail AMC, Regal, other movie theater chains into giving them a cut of the ticket price, into giving them a cut of concession stands, things that companies like AMC have said will never happen. Now, here's where I get a little bit worried, all right? This is where I get worried. Moviepass recently made a deal. You guys will remember this. Moviepass recently did a marketing promotional deal with the new Bruce Willis remake of Death Wish. Death Wish opened on the same weekend as the Jennifer Lawrence film Red Sparrow. You guys remember this story? And what happened? The weekend that Death Wish opened and Red Sparrow opened, a bunch of Moviepass subscribers who pay their monthly fees went to the theater to try to use their Moviepass to go see Red Sparrow, and Moviepass blocked people from going to see Red Sparrow because they had a promotional deal with Death Wish. Oopsie! Shady, dirty, underhanded company. this Moviepass is. And then they give this BS, oh no, we weren't purposefully doing that. And it didn't last all weekend and it wasn't everywhere, but a hell of a lot of people tried to go to see Red Sparrow with their Moviepass card, only to find out, sorry guys, we're not letting you go see that movie. Sorry. Why don't you go see Death Wish? We hear it's pretty good. Shitty movie. We hear it's pretty good. Why don't you go see Death Wish instead, huh? Oh, and I suppose this has nothing to do with the fact that Death Wish and the studio paid you millions of dollars to promote their film? That has nothing to do with you blocking us going to see the other major movie opening on the same weekend? So here's where I get a little bit worried. And I don't know that this might not happen at all, okay? This is just me speculating. May not happen at all. My fear is that in markets where there are landmark theaters now, that what Moviepass will do is very underhandedly and very creepily, kind of like a thief in the middle of the night, they're going to start limiting more other movie theaters that are in the area and go, well, we've got to deal with landmark as a further attempt to try to strong arm other theaters to make deals with them. So even though you may live in a certain area and you pay your monthly Moviepass fee under the understanding that I'm going to get to go to that movie theater and that movie theater and that movie theater, my fear is that they're going to pull the same stunt with local movie theaters as they did with like Red Sparrow opening against another movie that happened to be sponsoring them. That's my fear here. Again, we don't know that that's going to happen. I certainly don't know that that's going to happen. That is my fear. And I think there is some precedent to justify me being a little bit nervous of that. But let's take my fear and put it aside for a second. If you are a Moviepass member that lives near a landmark theater, this is a great piece of news. Because it takes away what to me has been the biggest roadblocks and the biggest pitfalls of the Moviepass service, which is advanced ticket sales, reserved seating, buying your tickets online. And it gives you those options which you never had before. So yeah, I've got some worries about what a company like Moviepass is going to do with this, but still on its surface, this is a pretty good deal. So you might want to check this out. All right, guys, with that out of the way, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on in the world of movie news that we don't necessarily have time to go into in depth. So that's why we do this little segment we call the Movie News Feed to get you all caught up. Check it out. First up, you might remember the other day when we told you that Naomi Watts was in negotiations for a role in the upcoming Mel Gibson, Frank Grillo film, Boss Level. Well, another piece of casting news has hit as Deadline is reporting that The Mummy and Annabelle creation star Annabelle Wallis has landed what they are calling a lead role in the new film. Boss Level follows a retired special forces officer who is trapped in a never-ending time loop on the day of his death. Wallis will play Alice, a dental hygienist who hates teeth but has a huge crush on her patient, Roy, played by Frank Grillo. Since Roy has to repeat this particular day numerous times till he gets it right, Alice is frequently a part of the repeating narrative, sometimes in bed alongside Roy as the first assassin of the day tries to murder him, as well as in other encounters with him. Wallace will next be seen in the John Hamm Jeremy Renner comedy, Tag. Next up, as some of you may have heard, the popular horror comic Lock and Key has been in development for a live-action series for some time over at Hulu. Well, that's dead now. According to reports, actress Samantha Mathis mentioned that she shot a pilot for the series, but then revealed that the streaming service has declined to pick it up. However, all may not be lost just yet. The reports also say that even though Hulu has turned them down, the producers will actively shop the pilot around to other streaming services as well. So we'll have to wait to see if Amazon, Netflix, or anyone else bites. The Lock and Key comic series follows the lives of three siblings who return to their family home after the death of their father. They discover that the house is full of mysterious secrets as well as keys that unlock doors that lead to the supernatural. Of course they do. Look, a lot of people have been looking forward to this, so hopefully it gets a chance on another network not called Hulu. Next up, Netflix has just released a trailer for their upcoming feature film, Kodachrome, which boasts an impressive cast including Jason Sudeikis, Elizabeth Olsen, and the great Ed Harris. Kodachrome is essentially a road trip movie that centers on Matt, played by Jason Sudeikis, who is talked into driving his estranged and dying father, Ben, played by Ed Harris, across the country on a quest to get 4 old rolls of Kodachrome film to the one lab left in the world where it can still be developed before that location closes down forever. Ben's nurse, Zoe, played by Elizabeth Olsen, tags along for the ride. Ben is one of the world's greatest living photographers and can remember every shot he's ever taken, yet he struggles when it comes to even something like remembering his own son's birthday. Kodachrome comes to Netflix and select theaters on April 20th. Next up, speaking of trailers, the first trailer for the upcoming Eli Roth film, The House with a Clock in Its Walls, dropped online yesterday. Starring Jumanji's Jack Black and one of the world's greatest actresses, Cate Blanchett, The House with a Clock in Its Walls is based on a children's book by the same name. The film is about a young boy who moves to his uncle's house and unleashes an ancient evil. Although the film is directed by Eli Roth, best known for directing such gory films as Hostile and Green Inferno, this one is produced by Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, which means the scares are fun for the whole family. The House with a Clock in Its Walls is set to hit theaters on September 21st later this year. And finally, almost anyone would be honored to have a burger named after them, right? Well, unless that person is named Steven Spielberg. Here's the story. Burger giant Carl's Jr. took to Twitter to announce that they would be renaming their charbroiled sliders to Spielburgers in honor of the iconic director and his new movie Ready Player One. They wrote the following: "Big news, guys! As a tribute to the legendary director of Ready Player One, we're going to change the name of our charbroiled sliders to Spielburgers. Steven Spielberg hasn't signed off yet, but we're pretty sure he'll be down with it." Yeah, about that. Well, see, unfortunately, the Big Steve wasn't down with it. Spielberg posted a video online shortly afterwards to turn down the offer when he said this: "Hey there, it's recently come to my attention that Carl's Jr. wants to rename their charbroiled sliders Spielburgers. They're pretty good, but I'm passing. Cease and desist. You can't do it. Sorry, guys." Well, so much for that idea. And that'll do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. All right, and now you are all caught up with everything significant going on in the world of movie news. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the main topics today as submitted by you guys. How do you submit a topic or a question to be used on The John Campea Show? It's simple. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. So let's dive into it here with the first topic today. And the first topic comes to us from Jake Weinstein, who writes, "I've been a fan since your Man of Steel review." Thank you so much, Jake. "I know you're a big NFL fan. Is there any way that Hollywood could institute a Rooney Rule to help with diversity?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, Jake. Now, for those of you who aren't big NFL fans and aren't quite sure what is the Rooney Rule. Okay, so here's what the Rooney Rule is. Back in like 2002, 2003, there came a situation in the NFL when the NFL was made up of 70% of African-American players. Like 70% of the players in the NFL were African-American, and yet, out of all 20 plus teams, only 2 teams had black head coaches. That seemed like a little disproportionate. So the Rooney Rule it's named after the guy who was like the head guy of the Pittsburgh Steelers. His last name was Rooney. Anyway, they instituted this rule in the NFL that they called the Rooney Rule, which simply said this: that if your team has a head coach job opening, and I can't remember if this includes general managers as well, it may not, but anyway, for argument's sake, let's just keep it to head coaches. If your team has a job opening for head coach, as a team, every NFL team is required to at least interview at least one African-American potential head coach. You are required by the NFL to at least interview one or more African-American head coach for the head coaching job. The Rooney Rule is not a quota. It doesn't say any team has to hire a black head coach. It doesn't say every team has to interview 17 black potential head coaches. There's no quota involved here. There is no rule that says any team has to hire anybody other than who they want to hire. All right? That's understanding the Rooney Rule. All it said was, If you're going to do interview processes, considering how many African American players have been through the system and know this game so well, there's simply no excuse to not at least interview some potential qualified candidates who just happen to be black. That's what the Rooney Rule is. No quotas, doesn't say how many people you have to hire. The results of the Rooney Rule, understanding that no team is required to hire a black coach, the results of the Rooney Rule have been spectacular in the sense that when they instituted the rule, I believe in 2003 or 2004, somewhere around there, when they instituted the rule, 2 black head coaches. Today, there's 8. Now, you may say, well, 8's not that big of a number. It is a 300% increase in the diversity and representation at the role. And remember, these are all coaches who were hired because they were qualified to have the job. The only thing the teams were required to do is interview them, and then the teams went, oh yeah, this guy's the best candidate for the job, so they hire him. I think the results of the Rooney Rule have been great because it doesn't make anybody hire anybody they don't want to. It's just forcing teams to kind of open their eyes to the fact that there are qualified, gifted, talented potential head coaches in this league who just happen to be African American. And so that's what it did, and the results have been spectacular. Now, could Hollywood benefit from something like the Rooney Rule? A rule that says, hey, this would have to be the movie industry policing itself. Like altogether, the studios would have to get together and say, we are going to create a rule for ourselves that we all agree to abide to. And that is when we are, taking pitches from directors, when we're interviewing potential directors or whatever, or writers or whoever, whatever, however broad or however narrow they want to make it, we agreed amongst each other that we are going to have a rule that we always interview. In the 20 or 30 people we'll probably sit down and talk to, we will always include, there has to be at least female representation in those we interview, and there has to be non-pasty white dude representation in the positions that we're interviewing for. And then you hire whoever you think is best. If it ends up to be a pasty white dude like John Campea, then you hire John Campea. But if it happens to be somebody else, and I think that's all it takes, because what we've seen in the NFL is that when the teams made a rule for themselves to at least open the door of opportunity, to at least allow these qualified people to come in and interview, the NFL found out, oh yeah, there's a lot of these people who are the best qualified for this, and these folks should be getting a chance. And I'm okay with that. I would totally be open to something like that in the Hollywood system. Not making anybody hire anybody they don't want to hire, but we've seen that when you at least open the doors and make sure you at least talk to some people who aren't pasty white males, that you're going to find some highly qualified people that'll be the best for your job when maybe you wouldn't have even given them a chance to talk to you before. So quotas, no. But something like the Rooney Rule, I've been saying for a long time, I'm totally open to it. I think the results we've seen of it in the NFL have been fantastic. I think it would be great to see something like that here. And I think if more studios just commit themselves to talking to more female directors, to talking to more black directors, to talking to more Asian directors, to talking to more anybody other than John Campea, I think it's just going to get better and better talent. So I think it would be a good thing. I would love to see them do it. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic comes to us from Nathanael Molnar, who writes, I know all the fans are pumped for Avengers Infinity War. However, one reason why Black Panther was successful was because it was entirely a standalone story. You didn't have to see 18 other movies to understand it. Could Infinity War be too daunting for the general audience? Could it be a turnoff to some people because they feel like they have to have seen every single MCU film to get it? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Nathaniel. And I think, honestly, the simplest answer to that is, yeah, that could be an issue. Because I know myself, I know at least 2 of my friends, at least 2, that I've spoken to that are not planning on rushing out to see Infinity War. And the 2 of them have both cited a variation of, I don't know what's going on. Like, I saw the trailer. The trailer looks great, but I have no idea what's going on. I don't know who that guy is. I don't know who that guy is. Maybe one day, once I get caught up on the MCU movies, I'll go out and give Infinity War a chance. And I'm willing to bet a couple of bucks here that I bet many of you have probably had that same conversation with a few people that are like, oh yeah, it looks great, but I don't know who any of these people are. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, yeah, and like I said, just a conversation I had like yesterday with somebody. He's like, yeah, once I have a chance to get caught up and watch a bunch of the other, comic book movies, then they didn't even say MCU. They said, once I get caught up on a bunch of the other comic book movies, I'll definitely check that out, but I'm not going to, rush out to see it when it's in theaters. I don't, however, think that represents a majority of the film-going audience. Will it have an effect? Yes, I think there will be an effect. But just because there's an effect doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a big effect. You know what I'm saying? It's not like Avengers Infinity War is only going to open to $90 million on its opening weekend because there's just too many people who don't know what's going on. No. It'll have an effect. There will be an impact. Does it potentially alienate some people? Sure, some. But I don't think it's going to be anywhere near a big enough number or a percentage. I think it's going to be a very finite percentage that that would actually look like it makes any bumps or any dents into the overall success of the film. So, yeah, the literal answer to your question of could it alienate some people is yes. This is not up for debate. Yes, it does, because I've already talked to a couple of people that have mentioned they're not going to go see it just because they're interested, but they're not going to go see it because they don't know what's going on yet. They feel like they need to get caught up. So the answer is objectively yes. This isn't a subjective answer. However, that yes is pretty small, I think. I think the yes is pretty small. So I know there are still a bunch of people out there who think that Black Panther will end up doing better at the box office than Infinity War, and I understand where you're coming from, but I still have to thoroughly disagree. I still think Infinity War is going to make more than enough to catch up. Would it have made a little bit more if everybody could have come to see it? Sure, but you're going to have situations like that with every movie. So yes, I do see it having an impact, but no, I don't see it having a big impact. You know what I'm saying? But I'm sure you guys have thoughts on that. Jump down to the comment section, leave your thoughts below. All right. And the final emailed in question today comes to us from Michael Ruiz, who writes, "Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much. I watch every day, even the ads." So thanks a lot, Michael. Robert Downey Jr. just posted a photo on his Facebook page announcing the voice cast for The Voyage of Dr. Dolittle. I think it's an amazing cast. Your thoughts? Well, yes, it is an amazing cast. I mean, a lot of people even forget that Robert Downey Jr. even has this Dr. Dolittle movie coming out. So he puts up this picture. Let's get a look at a bigger version of it here. Kind of letting everybody know all the voice talent. We got Emma Thompson's going to be in there. We've got, from the Queen biopic, Rami Malek is going to be in there. One of my favorite television comedian dudes is Craig Robinson. He's going to be in there. Spider-Man himself, Tom Holland's going to be there. Academy Award winner Octavia Spencer's going to be there. Ray Fiennes, Marion Cotillard, John Cena as a polar bear. Kumail Nanjiani, what a role he's on since Big Sick. And Selena Gomez and all this kind of stuff. So, is it an incredible cast? Yes. But it's just going to be their voices. And I don't get all that excited about super big talented casts when it's not actually them on screen acting. And I gotta, considering they're just doing a bunch of animals, I'm gonna probably guess a few of them are just gonna mail it in. Like, yeah, John Cena, he probably went into a sound booth for 2 days, recorded his lines and left. So now if all these people were appearing in the movie with Robert Downey Jr., I'd be getting significantly more excited. As far as just it being a voice cast, meh. I am looking forward to the film, though. I think it's a really interesting thing. I think Robert Downey Jr. was a really interesting choice to play the lead in it. So I'm looking forward to it, and it's certainly an impressive lineup. But again, it's not like they were on set for 3 months as they shot the movie. These are people who probably walked into some sound studio here in Burbank, was in there for like 6 hours, maybe a day or two, took their paycheck and left. Like, they're not going to appear in the film, so... I mean, I get far more excited. I don't like the modern trend that instead of getting professional voice actors who train and specialize in voice acting, they just go out and get big names. And I've never liked that trend. There are some examples where it's been magnificent, like Mike Myers doing Shrek, absolutely. There are some examples that it works great. But I think for the most part, there's no need... Let me see, who do we got here? Tom Holland is playing a dog. Okay. There's no need for that to be voiced by Tom Holland. You could get a really gifted, talented voice actor to come and do it. I love Tom Holland, but it doesn't need to be him. You know, Emma Thompson is one of the great actresses of all time, but it doesn't need to be her. You could get a really well-trained... So, I don't know, there's something about that trend that I don't particularly like, but I am looking forward to the movie quite a bit. All right, guys, with that stuff out of the way, we're going to go to your live questions here in just a second. However, before we get to that, you guys know that one of the sponsors of the John Campea Show right now is the Stardust app, which I've been thrilled to work with them. And I've been asking you guys to use the Stardust app and to tag me into your reactions, letting us know about what it is you guys have been watching. So we've got this little segment we got that we call What We're Watching, you guys making your recommendations to everybody else. Let's see what you guys are talking about.
Everybody, this is my first time doing a Stardust reaction, so the first movie that I saw using this is Blockers with John Cena and Leslie Mann. It was a packed house. It was a screener before the movie comes out April 3rd. The movie was fantastic. It was hilarious. I laughed through the entire movie, just like everybody else. Take your friends, your family, preferably under the age, over the age of 18, because it's rated R, but other than that, great movie. Loved it.
You know what? When it comes to Blockers, I will admit, when I first heard about it, starring John Cena and everything, it sounded like a cheap knockoff of some 90s or the early 2000 comedies. But when I started seeing the trailers, I got completely on board with it. First of all, Leslie Mann, I've always adored her. I remember her all the time from 40-Year-Old Virgin. Let's get some French toast. And you know what? John Cena has started to show in the last couple of years. He's got some serious, real comedic chops. Can he actually be the lead in a film like this one? We're going to have to wait and see, but I'm very excited about Blockers.
Thoughts on this week's episode is that it's another solid episode. I'm loving the team up between Jefferson and Anissa. I am not surprised to see Jennifer's reaction to discovering her powers and also learning that Anissa has powers, which is really cool that they are sisters with powers. I am worried that Gambi is not going to make it out of this season alive. I don't know if you guys agree, but I'm scared for him.
You know, I keep telling people week in, week out, Black Lightning is for real. It has turned into my favorite hero show on CW. Yes, it's overtaken The Flash for me. I've really been enjoying this show, but hey, listen, you're kind of cute, lady. Now, what do you say we hook up a little bit later, huh?
I just caught Unsane, the newest film by Soderbergh, shot entirely on an iPhone starring Claire Foy. I thought that this was brilliant, nail-biting, anxiety-ridden. The claustrophobia, the tension, and the just on the edge of your seat almost the entire time was done so well, especially through the use of shooting the entire thing on an iPhone. I highly recommend this film. I think that it needs a little bit better ratings than it's getting.
Actually, an interesting little film. The whole iPhone thing actually worked really well, made everything feel very claustrophobic. The actors did a great job, especially the lead, Claire Foy. Fantastic job in this film. Very much a slow burn, a little bit of a psychological thriller. My main complaint would be the whole, is he crazy or is he actually there, was explained halfway through the film. Otherwise, really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it.
You know what? I will admit it. This has come across to me like a gimmick film. Look, everybody, we shot it just on an iPhone. And it seemed like that was the extent of the gimmick. However, I've got more and more people like you two guys tell me that the movie's actually really good. So while I never had any plans to check this movie out, enough of you guys are telling me I should, that thanks to you guys and the Stardust app recommendations, I'm going to check this film out.
So I got to see Ready Player One in advance last night, and I absolutely love this movie. A lot more than I thought. I thought it was just going to be like a ton of references with a very paper-thin plot, and it really wasn't. It was such a good story, and I think all the actors, Ben Mendelsohn is such a great villain, just like he showed in Rogue One. All the references hit spot on, but at the end of the day, it's just a really touching and very, well-told story.
Well, just watched the first episode of Krypton, the pilot episode. That was good. Can't wait to see what comes next.
Yet another TV show I was pretty skeptical of. Of course, Krypton, just another cheap knockoff Superman movie. But I actually did a review earlier this week on my channel about the pilot episode of Krypton. And this show was a lot more, had a lot more heart, had a lot more depth, had better character development in it. And they set up a lot of drama, far more than I thought they would. Now, like I said in my review, this show could go off the rails really fast. But for now, that pilot got me on board. And I'm like you, I'm excited to see the next episode.
Okay, so I just saw the trailer for Deadpool 2. Seems like he's gonna be better than the first one. I love that Terry Crews is a part of the X-Force now. I love myself some Terry Crews. I love this. The humor seems to be on point, and the action looks spectacular, to be expected from the director of John Wick. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
So I've just finished watching the Deadpool 2 newest trailer, and I'm pretty underwhelmed. I think it was pretty much paint by numbers, and I preferred the first one. I really don't think that they should have announced that the X-Force is going to be in the movie, or the team that they're going to make is called the X-Force. That should have been saved for the movie. There's no need to put it in the trailer. We're already so excited.
So 2 dissenting opinions about the Deadpool trailer. Look, I will go along with the first guy. I loved the Deadpool trailer. I thought it was great and funny and sharp and witty and all that kind of stuff. However, I have been surprised by how many people say they were kind of meh by it, or as you were saying, a little bit underwhelmed by it. Like, I don't know why. I saw it and I thought everybody would love it, but I am constantly hearing from a few people that they weren't thrilled with it. Like, a lot of people I know thought it was okay. A lot of people I know loved it, but a bunch of people thought it was okay, but more people than I expected just kind of think it was all right. It's going to be interesting to see how the movie carries people over and if it'll win them over, whereas maybe the marketing isn't. At least we can all agree the marketing isn't as good as the first film was, but for me, it's been working so far. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of What We're Watching. Let's get back to the live show. All right, and a special thank you to all you guys who sent in your reactions. Guys, look in the description of this video. You'll find a link to go get Stardust. It's free. You record your reviews and reactions, 3 to 30 seconds long. Make sure you tag me in it on the main screen, and maybe you will see your face pop up here on the John Campea Show. Okay, with that stuff out of the way, let's get into the live questions. I got about 10 minutes here to get to a bunch of live questions. And our first one comes to us from Alexander Helmer, who writes, what celebrity autographs do you take pride in? I got Michael Rooker, and he was extremely nice. We were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy for a good 2 minutes. Great guy. I actually don't collect autographs. The only autograph I have, I mean, I might have 1 or 2, but the one autograph I remember getting was, you guys may or may not remember the name of Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson was the fastest man on the planet. He was a Canadian sprinter, was breaking all the records, all that kind of stuff. And then the whole steroid scandal came out and he was disgraced and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, before the steroid scandal came out, he was doing an autograph session at a local mall where I was growing up, and I didn't have anything for him to sign, so I took off my shoe and I got Ben Johnson, the fastest man in the world, to autograph my shoe. That shoe became worthless. I thought it was going to be worth $1 million someday. It became worthless after the scandal, of course, but that was the one big autograph that I had. Dakota Barber writes, my apartment was hit by a tornado in Jacksonville last week. That's awful, man. I'm sorry to hear about that. And watching your show has helped through this difficult time. Thanks for that, John. Well, thank you so much, Dakota, for sharing that. And I'm glad that I'm sure not just me, but everybody else in the movie community too here. Hopefully we can provide a great place for you to have a little bit of an escape, just smile a little bit, enjoy yourself. And I hope you're able to recover as much as the stuff as you can about that. Sorry to hear about that, but super glad you shared that. Thanks so much, Dakota. Drew G writes, watched The Last Jedi this morning. Liked it a lot less than in theaters. Throne room fight scene might be my favorite Star Wars scene of all time, though. That was a good scene. It's still nowhere near my favorite scene. Like, my favorite all-time scene is another throne room scene between Luke and Vader. That's my personal one. But yeah, definitely the throne room scene is a good one. Jonathan Blasberg writes, let's see. Infinity War premiere 3 days before release. Concerned? No, not at all, because... And that's essentially was when the review embargo was dropping. Look, it's kind of standard now that 3-4 days, even 2, I've always said as long as you release the embargo date at least 2 days before the movie opens, because that gives a chance for word of mouth to get out. It's when you're dropping it like the day before, or like 12 hours before the movie opens. 3 days before is kind of a standard thing, not a bad thing. Now, what we are used to, we're used to Marvel releasing embargoes like a month before, like 2.5 weeks before the movie comes out. However, this is unlike any other Marvel film before, because we have Avengers 3, then we've got Avengers 4 coming, and in between, we've got these 2 other Marvel films, Ant-Man, and we're all asking, where's Ant-Man in the trailers? Well, clearly there's something really big and secret in there. Plus, we've got Captain Marvel. Rumors about Captain Marvel appearing in Avengers 3, at least in a cameo. Don't know if that's true or not, but rumors. So you get these 2 other films that could be severely spoiled. Not worried about spoiling this one movie, but we're worried about spoiling the next 3 movies. Ant-Man, Captain Marvel, and Avengers 4, all of which could have significant spoilers within Avengers 3, shedding a lot of light on those films, and I think that's what they're trying to protect. Again, I would be quite worried if they were dropping the embargo one day before the movie comes out. But as long as it's a few days before the movie comes out, like most other films, I don't think there's anything here to be worried about. I'm going to go to the world premiere. I just got my invitation to go to the world premiere on the 23rd, so that's 3 days before the film opens. And that's probably when they're going to drop the embargo as well, as soon as we see it. But we'll find out soon enough. The day is getting closer and closer. TF writes, guys, if you haven't watched the Won't You Be My Neighbor trailer, watch it. So touching. So true, TF. I finally got around to watching it. I saw it because it played in front of Isle of Dogs. So heartfelt, so moving, so amazing. The world needs Mr. Rogers today more than ever before. We need more people like Mr. Rogers. And watch this trailer and tell me it doesn't move you. I dare you to watch that trailer and tell me it doesn't move you. Lee Melanson writes, each DCU film has made more than $600 million. Better averages than Bond, Apes, X-Men, Mission Impossible, Star Trek, etc., but is in trouble. Is this a double standards? Well, if you want to only talk about money and not talk about the fact that they're also been completely divisive, that the critics have hated most of them, the audiences have hated a number of them, even though Man of Steel is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, half the audience who saw it hated it. If you want to just forget about all that stuff and you just want to talk about money, but even money, you have to talk about and evaluate things in the era and in the genre that it lives. We just had a basically unknown character in the name of Black Panther. It's going to hit $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion. Whereas you got a movie with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg, all in the same movie together, and it makes less than half of what to be honest, a B-level comic book character, Black Panther, that a lot of people have never even heard of, comes out, going to crack 1.3 billion. The fact that Justice League came out and should have been its biggest movie by far, and the fact that it tanked as far as the trajectory and became the lowest grossing DC movie yet, DCEU movie, I should say, yet, when it should have been the biggest. It should have been their version of the Avengers. So if you just want to cherry pick the argument and limit the scope of the argument to just say, hey, each DC film's made over $600 million. If that's all you want to look at and pretend all the other stuff isn't there, then fine. But if you want to take that as one of the exhibits in a discussion that includes audience reaction, critic reaction, overall trajectory, the health of the genre as a whole, how come we've got Marvel putting out B-level characters cracking $1 billion? Their big Justice League film, Avengers, is maybe going to crack $2 billion. So you can't just limit it to, look, when you have to try to narrow and focus and limit the discussion till it's this big to try to make your point, that should be a sign to you that your point's in trouble. The DCEU is in trouble. This is coming from a guy who has given every single DCEU film a positive review. I've liked all of them. Unabashedly, I make no apologies. I've liked them all. I've even liked Suicide Squad. I know a lot of you didn't. That's cool, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I liked it. I had fun. I acknowledge it had its problems, but I had fun with it. And I take a lot of shit from you guys because I like the DCU films. So be it. All I can do is give you my honest opinion. But as somebody who likes all the films, look, when you look at all the evidence, you can't deny it's in trouble. Warner Brothers knows it's in trouble. That's why they've done so many, so much shuffling around with their upper management on this. They know it's in trouble. Of course it's in trouble. Sticking our heads in the sand and pretending there's no problem isn't going to make the problem go away. They need to fix it. They need to get fans on board. Because, box office isn't money. Box office is people going to the theater. And they just don't have people going to theater to see them. At least not in the levels that they should be, and their numbers are declining. Of course it's in trouble. Of course it is. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Preston Walden, who writes, pics of Avengers 4 on Internet Movie Database look like time travel. Yeah, but again, we always talk about, remember, the picture of Scoot McNairy came out from Batman vs. Superman, and everybody thought he was the Flash. Looks like he's the Flash. He's got green leggings on. Turns out couldn't have been further from the truth. So yeah, it's fair to have some discussions, but I wouldn't, and it could be true. I mean, it could be, Avengers 4 could be time travel. It's just really, we have learned over and over and over again that constructing big hypotheses around some behind the scenes pictures usually doesn't work out. So very well could be time travel, but let's not, invest too much into that theory just yet. All right, just got just a couple of minutes left here. Next one comes to us from Ethan Hunt, who writes, "For what it's worth, you've become my favorite source for mainstream movie news. Your solo setup is perfect. We get the news, your thoughts, and move on to the next. Easier than 5 opinions before the next topic. Thanks. Keep it up." Well, first of all, thank you so much for that, Ethan. And you know what? Neither style is better than the other. I think they both styles, whether it's, and by the way, I'm the one who created the sports panel movie chat format. I mean, I started it when I created the world's first movie podcast. I mean, but they each do different things, right? One is not better than the other. I mean, one group of 3 or 4 people can be better than another group of 3 or 4 people, and one individual can be better than another individual. But as far as what's the better style, a panel or a solo, they each have different strengths. Like, I watch Around the Horn on ESPN. That's a group of 5 people, and I love it. I also watch, Colin Cowherd, who's a solo sports broadcasting guy, and I think he's great. Each style is different. Some are better in group formats than others. There are some group commentators who aren't very good. There are some group commentators that are great. There's some individual commentators who aren't very good. There's some individual commentaries who are really great. And then there's individual commentators like me who's somewhere in the middle. But it's not that one is better than the other. I think they each have its own particular strength. It just depends on who the personalities are and the pundits. Are they good communicators? Do they articulate well? Do they come across with honesty? Whether you like their opinion or not, do they come across? That's all the big things. And then it's up to the individual style. But thank you so much for sharing that, Ethan. I really appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to take 3 more, and then we're going to call it a day. And listen, guys, if you have sent in a live question that I don't have time to get to, don't worry, it will be answered a little bit later today on the companion video. I will answer all those questions that you guys have sent in on the companion video for those I don't get around to. All right, next one comes to us from HV39000, who writes, "Are you looking forward to Super Troopers 2? I don't know, there's been so many Super Troopers incarnations, I just refuse to get excited about them anymore. The first one's a guilty pleasure of mine for sure, but the other ones, Last of the Time Lords writes, "Will we get a Starship Troopers reboot? See previous question." I can't think of a good username. That's a great username. Writes, "If Marvel does get the X-Men and Fantastic Four back, I think they should be in their own universe, and with a multiverse existing in the MCU, they can still be connected, and it would explain the existence of mutants." I'm not a big fan of multiverse, and I don't really think the audience is a big fan of multiverse, but you're pretty much saying what I've been saying for a while. I would love to see, if Disney gets X-Men and Fantastic Four back, I would love to see them in a separate cinematic universe. However, we have already heard from Bob Iger say that, if they do get them back, if they get X-Men and Fantastic Four, they're going to be in the MCU. Bob Iger has already pretty much confirmed that. So while you would like them to be in their own individual universe, and I would like them to be in a separate cinematic universe, it looks like Bob Iger has different plans. And I'm sure it'll work out fine. But first we got to see if this deal even goes through or not. We'll have to wait and find out. Probably about a year away before we know. And the last question I got time for today comes to us from Jacinthan, who writes, "Embargo lifts for Infinity War only a few days before opening. This is unusual for Marvel, as they do weeks ahead, even months ahead for Civil War's case. I see a bit of a red flag, even though they say it's to avoid spoilers." Yeah, look, whenever somebody says, "Oh, they're just pushing off the embargo date to hide spoilers," I always say, bull. In this one specific case, I will make an exception. Number one, because it's still lifting its embargo date relatively around the same time most movies lift their embargo date. So there's really no red flag there. But the other thing is, as I've said before, the different situation here is that I don't think they're trying to hide spoilers of this one movie. I think they are trying to hide and protect spoilers from their next 3 movies, because I believe their next 3 movies are all directly connected to this movie. Like, one of the big mysteries has been, where's Ant-Man? Where's Ant-Man? We know he's in the movie. Why are we not seeing him? Blah, blah, blah. Well, it just so happens we've got an Ant-Man movie coming right after Avengers Infinity War. And I'm sure the events of Infinity War are going to cast massive spotlights on Ant-Man. So if they were lifting the review embargo 24 hours before the movie came out, I would say that's a flag. But anything more than that, and I've said this before, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days before, then I think it's fine. Because that's kind of a standard thing. A lot of movies release their embargo dates in that same time period. Yes, it is different for Marvel, but this is also a different situation for Marvel. So, yeah, again, it's not like some DC movies or some other movies that have hid the reviews until like 12 hours before the movie opens or something like that. This is still 3 days early. It's perfectly fine. And look, I have been saying all along, people hate it when I say this, Infinity War could suck. Who knows? We're not going to know for sure until we see it. It could suck. But I don't think this particular lifting of the embargo date is any red flag because, again, it's when a lot of movies lift their embargo dates. We've got 3 other movies coming after Avengers 3 that is going to be directly affected by Avengers 3. And I think they're trying to hide the spoilers for multiple films, not just this one movie, in which case I would call BS. But again, who knows? Maybe I'll come out of the Infinity War premiere and go, yep, they were hiding this movie because this thing's a sack of garbage. Who knows? We'll find out for sure in a few weeks. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me and being a part of this. Hey, listen, guys, if you're not a Patreon supporter, but you enjoy watching my programs, do me a favor. Just take a minute out. Go over to www.patreon.com/JohnCampea. Get all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter. Find out how being a Patreon supporter keeps this show on the air, and also what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter, like audio-only podcasts, a Facebook group, some behind-the-scenes videos, things like that. And then maybe you'll want to become a Patreon supporter too. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. I'm just glad you're here being a film fan with us. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment. Thanks so much for joining me, and until my next video, bye-bye.